Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third week of the OSU preview. I'm your host, Alex Dusky, and I'm joined by none other than Asa Lucas and Jace Andrews. Guys, how you doing this morning?
It is another beautiful day for college football here in Stillwater, America.
It is a great day for college football, and hopefully we can get one of the largest wins in school history in terms of points scored.
All right, well, before we get into today's game, let's recap last week's Cowboys win over the Arizona State Sun Devils. The final score was 34-17. ASU did get the first points of the game, but by halftime, Cowboys were up 17-3. My overall thought is that the defense played as well as last year, but maybe Spencer Sanders and the offense didn't look as good as we saw them in the first week of Cowboy football. Asa, what were your key takeaways?
Watching that game, I never felt like OSU was in complete control. Even going into kind of the fourth quarter, they did that thing where they let their foot off the gas pedal, and then suddenly ASU was starting to come back. And Spencer Sanders showed a little bit of Spencer Sanders' biggest weaknesses with turnovers, throwing that pick in the first quarter.
But it didn't get him rattled, I don't think.
True. But I think what we saw is what we've been talking about the last 2 weeks, where this defense is good, but the secondary has problems, and it's going to come down to Spencer Sanders to win us games.
I am going to say I completely disagree with you in a lot of aspects.
Whoa.
This is probably why we have two analysts on here to have different mindsets, but I think we were in control of the game throughout the entirety. I think that there was never a moment in time where we looked out of sync or like we were confused. Obviously, our offense didn't play as well as we hoped to, and we couldn't get stuff going right away. And I'm not going to call them out for it because, honestly, ASU was playing some pretty good defense, but I didn't like the play calling early in the game. The first quarter was a bit tough to me, but I think, just like Alex said, Spencer was not rattled by that pick at all. He looked confident the entire game. And the fourth quarter you mentioned that we said that we kind of broke down in. I'm going to argue that that was one of the, in terms of confidence, biggest drives of Spencer's career. Because let's just picture this, okay? So that's the key drive of the game to me, is 14:54 left in the fourth. ASU had just scored a touchdown to make the score 20-17. That's about the time you were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 3 swift plays and in just under a minute, Spencer Sanders calmly marched the Cowboys 65 yards down the field and matched the Sun Devils with a 31-yard touchdown pass to Bryson Green. I mean, the confidence level at home in the rain to
The rain, for
correct
sure.
the rain, like that threw a wrench in the whole thing because no one really expected that to happen.
I
But-
did. I checked the radar before I left.
I can expect that from Alex Dusky. I could expect that. But the fact that that took 3 plays after you had just got put in a very tough scenario where people were leaving. People were leaving the game because of the rain, and you were able to march down the field calmly. I think that was a big thing for Spencer and the Cowboys to show off.
Looking statistically at his performance, Spencer had 322 yards of total offense. Keeping the tally up, he has 26 wins, and he needs 33 for the most career wins as a starting Cowboy quarterback. Another record that we should keep our eyes out for is he only needs 194 rushing yards to break the quarterback rushing record. That record was set by Brent Blackman with 1,870 yards from the early 70s.
Old Brent Blackman. I mean, talk about a dynasty in the Cowboys' times with Brent Blackman.
So I think Spencer had a pretty good game. You kind of hinted at this. Bryson Green, he was the leading receiver. He had a career high in both 5 catches and a career high 83 yards. And that 31-yard touchdown pass was the longest catch of his career.
Right, that's pretty good. And I think, again, I mentioned it last week, multiple Cowboys were catching the ball. I mean, this week we had, I think, 5 guys with multiple catches. That's pretty good when you can say that you have 5 guys 2 weeks in a row who have had more than 1 catch. Also, you had 2 receiving touchdowns in there, one from a running back, Ollie Gordon, getting his first touchdown of the Cowboy career. It's gonna be amazing.
Just in a lighter note, something I will give credit to the Cowboys for is Dominic Richardson. He had a really good game, 27 carries, 131
career high,
yards.
27 carries.
So it's nice to see that we're having our RB1 start to come out and show some prowess.
I completely agree, and I think the best thing about that is he shut down the game in the fourth quarter because of his running ability. He was able to continuously get first downs, chew the clock up, and let the Cowboys kind of stroll to a victory in the fourth rather than having to worry anything.
Looking at the defense, we held ASU to 0 of 9 on their third down attempts to start the game. The defense collected 3 sacks, 10 quarterback hurries. The player that we talked about last week, Mason Cobb, he led the team again with 9 total tackles, 5 solo, and 1 tackle for loss. Jace, what did you like from the defense?
Tyler Lacey. I loved Tyler Lacey. I got to be honest. The defense looked great, but I think a lot of that was because of Tyler Lacey. He was an absolute menace to the Sun Devils. 1 sack, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 QB hurries. If we have him and Trace Ford on the defensive line, I don't know who is going to stop us.
Before Asa gives his feedback, I do want to mention that fumble recovery by Tyler Lacey was a forced fumble by Brock Martin, who's a player that we talked about that, had some injuries, but we're excited to have him back in the starting rotation this year.
I'll tell you, Brock Martin did a great job of bullying that Arizona State offensive line. He was the player for me next to Tyler Lacey that really stuck out. So I like our our front four. They are just looking tough, and they are causing a lot of issues, which is not something shocking. We did wonder, you're going from a top 5 defense to what are we going to have now with all these freshmen and players starting to come in and fill these spots. But the front of the defense is causing no concern for me.
Well, and I have a stat here that I think is putting OSU in a good direction. So last year, who do you think the top 3 tacklers on the team were, as always, from almost every week?
Rodriguez.
Yeah, but so you got to have Malcolm Rodriguez.
Devin
was always up there.
Okay.
And who do you think the third was?
Trey
is probably a good one, but he was out for most of the season.
Right.
But it was a safety, and he's actually on the list here.
Jason Taylor the
Correct.
second.
And this week,
3 for 3.
Let me see where he's going with this.
Just similar as to last year. Mason Cobb, what position does he play?
Linebacker.
And Jason Taylor. Xavier Benson, what position does he play?
Linebacker.
Just like we had with last year, Devin Harper, Malcolm Rodriguez being both linebackers, making the most tackles. I think that's a good thing to see just because that means the defensive line's getting pressure enough for those linebackers to get in, stop the run. Especially when it's a running team and you have your linebackers making the tackles, not the safeties. Obviously, Jason Taylor is a safety, but we mentioned last week, his style of play is very much go to the ball instead of wait for it.
Mm-hmm. And kind of a little bit off topic, but we talked about Malcolm Rodriguez. Did you know that his Detroit Lions jersey sold out this week?
I'm telling you, the 2 most famous Detroit Lions ever, Malcolm Rodriguez and Barry Sanders.
Does not shock me.
Do you guys have any other last-minute thoughts from the win over Arizona State before we move on?
It's a good win. I'll be curious when we go to our last episode of the season. I want us to come back to this and see how Central Michigan and Arizona State finish. I'm very curious. Are these teams a lot better than what their early part of the season has shown, or are they not as good? And with the kind of struggles Oklahoma State has had, this was foreshadowing a tough second half of the season.
So to bounce a question off that, I've heard multiple reactions to this win. Some people think it's a good win, that they played well the entire game, and some people, like you said, Asa, where you didn't feel like they were in control of it. What do y'all think? Do y'all think this was a very good win that should propel Oklahoma State, or do you think it was so-so, maybe they should have done better?
I think a win is a win, and no matter the opponent, it's going to give the guys motivation and kind of build that team camaraderie. I think there's still a lot to work on, and that's why we have these fairly easy non-conference games so that the players can get these practice with each other, real game atmospheres. All 3 of our non-conference games are night games, so Boone Pickens is super loud. So you kind of have to, weigh it. I don't think these are, per se, if we were to beat Baylor and Waco, but I still think these are good team-building wins.
I'd say for the defense, when you hold a dual-threat quarterback like Emory Jones, he had 7 carries. Do you know how many rushing yards he had, Jace, without looking at your cheat sheet?
I want to say he had less than 50.
Negative 17.
Negative 17. Goodness.
So when you do that, I think defensively this is a win, but offensively still question marks for me.
I think, we kind of talk about Kansas football. If they win the quarter, that's a big win for them. With Oklahoma State football in these last 2 weeks, there's a lot of little wins that we can take away while still getting the win in the victory column.
Yeah.
So looking at tonight's game, Oklahoma State takes on the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. They are an FCS opponent, and this is the first time the 2 teams have met. Oklahoma State moved up to number 8 in the AP poll, number 7 in the coaches poll. This is the highest ranking for the Cowboys after 2 weeks since, any guesses?
2017?
Asa?
Let's go 2018.
2011.
Oh,
Oh,
dang.
wow.
And that's
That was a good team right there.
a team that last year's Cowboys were compared to a lot. Looking at Big 12 schools in the rankings, OU moved up to 7, Baylor dropped down to 17, and Texas moved up to 21. We will talk about the Big 12 in a little bit. So while I mentioned that Arkansas Pine Bluff is an FCS opponent, you can't count FCS schools. Just look at, what happened this past weekend with FCS schools in Power 5.
There were some great wins. It was a lot of fun to watch schools get paid $1 million and beat a Division I powerhouse.
Marshall and Notre Dame, App State and Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this: most of those teams do have a guy they can kind of be confident in. I don't see anybody in Arkansas Pine Bluff that I'm like, dang, I'm kind of worried about him and him alone.
Skylar Perry?
I'll disagree.
The quarterback?
Kayvon Britton, the running back?
Who have they played? Please
it doesn't
tell
matter.
me.
Let's look. I'll go. Asa, do you want to go first with your player?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, so the best player to me is running back Kayvon Britton. He's averaging 130 yards per game with nearly 7 yards per carry. To put it in our perspective, the entire Cowboys football team is averaging 160 yards per game on the ground. So he alone is 30 yards shy of what the Cowboys' entire team has done on the ground.
I was going to talk about Skylar Perry, the Pine Bluff quarterback. This season, he's 26 for 38, 434 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he's got a rating right now 185.1.
Okay, I will admit they are scoring a lot of points, but I want you two to both look at me and tell me who have they played. Name the two teams. Just name them. Name me the names.
NAU?
Lane.
Okay, I mean, I guess. Those are the right teams.
We did our research. Come on.
Well, I know. I just listen. All I'm saying is Arkansas Pine Bluff to me is the weakest opponent Oklahoma State has played since 2012. Can you guess who that was and what the score was to that game that I'm talking about?
Was that like McNeese State?
It is a state school.
We played them in 2019.
Yeah, we played them. Now they put up a fight. Somewhat.
I have no guesses.
Savannah State. Want to guess the score?
Let's go 66-3.
72-10.
84-0.
Oh.
But you want to know the problem is? They lost to Arizona the next week.
Who did?
Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So
that's the Cowboys I've grown up and watched.
That's the unfortunate part of it.
Yeah.
Something that is worth noting is the Golden Lions have lost their last 5 road games. So they're kind of on a road losing streak here. We mentioned how there's not really a lot to talk about to preview, so I have a little stats game for you guys, a little guessing game. We'll check how you guys do on next week's podcast. So, first question, Spencer Sanders total yards. Now, for bonus points, if you'd like to split up passing and rushing, you can, but I'm just looking for the total.
Total yards, let's go 781.
Wow.
Goodness.
I know cheat sheet. I'm just guessing.
Okay. I'm going to go 423.
Oh.
And for the bonus points,
That's kind of low.
well,
in my
he's going to get
opinion.
taken out in the third quarter.
Sorry, correction. Maybe I misheard. Are you talking about for this game, or are you talking about through the season, these last 2 games?
Tonight's game.
Sorry. Completely misinterpreted that.
Yeah, so you only think Spencer Sanders is going to get
780
yards
yards?
for the season?
No, I saw the last 2 games you're asking.
Okay.
Total.
Okay.
No,
How many
I'm
he's
asking
had.
for a
I was
prediction.
very
Yeah,
confused.
prediction? Okay.
So sorry.
No, correct. That's on me. Let's go 412.
Okay. Anyone want to go for bonus points?
I was about to say 423, and I'm going to say he's going 123 on the ground and 300 even in the air. But I think Dominic's going to be a very big guy, and I can't wait to see Ollie Gordon just run over some Pine Bluffs.
So we'll have
Golden
280
Lions.
passing yards and 132 rushing yards.
Okay, sounds good. I wrote it down. We'll come back next week. All right, this might be a little easier. Who's going to be the leading rusher?
Go Dominic
Spencer.
Richardson.
Oh. Do we want
Spencer.
to give, well, since you already say Spencer's rushing yards, do you want to give Dominic's rushing yards?
I'm going to give him 140.
All right.
144.
And the leading receiver?
Ooh, that's tough.
Do
Right.
I want to gamble with
That
John
is
Paul
tough.
Richardson? Do I
Oh.
want to believe in him?
Yes.
Come on, you got to believe
why
in
not?
JPR.
I'm going to go with Braden Johnson.
Okay.
Brennan. I think he's going
Brennan
to
Presley?
catch a long touchdown to start the game.
All right. Both good choices. You know, I like all of our receivers. I think they're all good
Oh,
guys.
Yep.
No one really is a star yet, but that's kind of good, giving Spencer more targets.
It's what we've talked about for the past 2 podcasts. We don't have a number 1 wide receiver, but maybe that's a good thing. And it showed off the past 2 weeks having to have multiple options for Spencer.
It also, the defense doesn't say, oh, they're going to throw to Brennan. We're always going to guard Brennan.
Correct, and I think that was the problem last year and why Spencer had some of the interceptions that were, probably not going to happen this year because they double guarded Tay, and the play call was, all right, let's throw it to Tay in the end zone, or hey, let's throw it to Tay here. And now it's like, all right, Spencer, you're a senior quarterback. You've got to go through your progressions. If you want to try and be an NFL quarterback, I mean, we saw it from Justin Herbert a couple of nights ago. The progressions that he goes through is something insane. And I think Spencer can do just that. And with the receivers he has this year, I'm excited to see what he can do.
Are you comparing Spencer Sanders to Justin Herbert?
I'm comparing
Hey, last
that-
week we were comparing him to Patrick Mahomes.
Hey, he actually
Yeah,
had a stat
okay.
that was comparable to Patrick Mahomes. So I'm comparing Justin Herbert as the quarterback that people in colleges should try and shoot for in terms of going through progressions, understanding the flow of the game, and being able to go out there whenever needed and throw a pass, which is what Justin Herbert did a couple nights ago.
Okay, my final little quiz question. How many OSU punts?
4.
Oh, it's kind of high.
Okay, I'm going to say this, and I may be completely off, or I may have just become Nostradamus. 0.
So you
I
say
don't
we're
think
just going to start kicking 60-yard field goals, or we're just never going to have to settle?
I think
Wow.
we're going to be able to get into field goal range every time, and if we don't,
They'll just go for it.
here's what I'll
Turnover
say,
on
though.
down.
Ultimately, I wasn't going to say 0 if Asa went, 2 or 3, but he went 4. So
Yeah.
honestly, if we get 1 or 2 here, I'm still closer.
You really like playing devil's advocate
Hey,
with me,
man.
Jace. You really do.
Isn't that the point of this?
All right. Well, let's take a look back at the Big 12. Now, we mentioned last week how we're going to start keeping tallies of who's the most accurate with their predictions, and I have to pat myself on the back. I went 3-0 with my Big 12 predictions. Asa was 1 for 2, and
jaded
Jace
about that. I'm jaded.
0 for 3 with his Big 12 predictions.
That won't happen again, fans. I'm
Okay,
sorry
okay.
to let y'all down. I know y'all are really rooting for me. Can't happen.
I was going to say, I feel like for me, the universe was out to get me. I mean, both of my
Yes.
games, one went into double overtime and the other one was a last-second field goal.
Well, and I
That's
think
true.
the problem was we really should have won that Texas game if Quinn Ewers was still
Yep.
in the quarterback position.
What is the
Agreed.
latest injury update on him?
4 to 6 weeks.
Jinx. So that
Go
puts
Minnesota, Asa.
that puts him right at the homecoming game, right?
Yep, that would
And-
put us literally his latest week he could return would be Oklahoma State homecoming.
And I'm going to touch on this very, very, very quickly before we talk about the Big 12. But us being ranked 8th does scare me because going into homecoming, if we can stay undefeated, that is a classic Big 12 recipe for an upset.
Well, and I think Alex can help me out with this, but
Whoa,
wasn't our last...
Whoa. Some things don't need to be said to jinx them.
I was just saying, when was our last home loss?
Homecoming against Texas 2020.
I was
That
there
was my
Halloween
fear.
night or Halloween afternoon.
Oh, in overtime.
Afternoon.
It was like, what, 55-48, I think? I don't know. It was a weird score.
That was a game that Spencer played well in, but he just honestly fell apart at the end.
Yep.
Well, let's not harp on the past.
No, harping.
What about that Baylor-BYU game?
What happened to Baylor, man? That's what I believed. I bought into the Sick'em. I was all about it.
You bought into
I
this.
was
Sick'em.
not.
I bought into it, but the altitude got to him. I
You can
guess.
never defeat a team with a mascot that has the moves like the BYU Cougar.
I think he should be the wide receiver next. Well, I think here's where I stand on that. I am happy that Baylor lost because that helps Oklahoma State in terms of like feeling more confident going
No.
into Waco.
True.
That's true.
But it also scares me because
Baylor's gonna have vengeance.
correct. And Baylor, they're one of the weirdest teams in college football because they're constantly good one year and then bad the next, and then good one year and then bad the next. And they lose these games that you're wondering, what happened in this game. But then a couple weeks later, they come out and destroy a ranked team. And if you count a couple weeks, that's us. And so I think it puts us in a scary position. But the thing that I'm going to look to for that game would hopefully be vengeance on our side as well from the Big 12 championship. But looking back to the Baylor-BYU game, they didn't pass the ball at all. They really didn't throw it.
Squirrel Williams.
Correct. Squirrel Williams, I mean, he was running really the entire game. So I'm interested to see what their play calling is like this week to see if I really think Blake Shapen was hurt. I really do.
It would make sense to me. And I'm sure part of it, too, BYU, I'm sure everyone on that team just heard over and over again that Baylor's going to come in and disrespect you in your home, and Baylor's so much better, and they're a Power 5 team, and they're top 10. So I'm sure you had that chip on your shoulder, which helped BYU step up and fight back.
I think this game was also good for the Big 12 because with BYU coming in, as soon as next year, saying, okay, well, they can compete with the Big 12 teams that are staying.
I think that was honestly the saving grace in this game for Oklahoma State fans and for Big 12 fans for that matter. There really wasn't a bad option as to who wins this game from an outside perspective because you have Baylor, who is currently in the Big 12. They're ranked at the time in the top 10, and now you have BYU coming in.
Looking back on that Texas-Bama game real quick, Asa, do you think that was more of a Texas played really well or Alabama just didn't play up to par?
I like to say mixture of both, but I will say I think it was Texas playing very well, and then in the fourth quarter just kind of collapsing.
Jace?
Texas has an amazing defense, but without Quinn Ewers, their offense is nothing.
Looking at this week in the Big 12, I've selected 3 games for us to talk about. The first one, Kansas-Houston. Kansas is undefeated. Coming off of a conference win over West Virginia. What are your thoughts on that game?
I like Kansas. I like where they're heading right now, 2-0, first time since 2011. And we were talking about predictions, and you bringing up this game. My first Big 12 prediction is on Kansas upsetting Houston.
Oh, okay. Let me write that down, Jace.
Kansas going 3-0.
Kansas, as of right now, is in the top 5 in points scored per games, which if you asked somebody 2 weeks ago who would be in the top 5, I don't think anybody would have said Kansas.
Absolutely.
USC, maybe so. But Kansas, that's a tough one. I'm going to say Houston because I have more belief in them. And if I'm correct, I believe it's in Houston, right?
It is.
It is.
Yeah, so I think that's ultimately a hard thing for Kansas to come away from. So, yeah, I'm going to take Houston on this, even though Jalen Daniels is a great quarterback. I just don't think they can get it done this time.
Even after they broke your heart in Lubbock last week?
Man, that's why they're going to play vengeance right now.
You're putting money on Dana Holgerson as your guy, as your coach.
Man, that guy's got some fire in him, I'll tell you that.
I'm picking Houston as well. While I would love a Jayhawk upset, I'd rather have that than me get the point for being correct. I just think that Houston's going to pull it out. The next game, Texas Tech, NC State. I
got to go with Texas Tech.
Okay.
They showed a lot of heart pulling it out and coming back against Houston when I thought they were going to be done. And it was going to be an easy Houston win. And they were the only team out of my 3 predictions that won. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me. So Texas Tech is going to pull off the upset at a ranked NC State.
Oh, I forgot that would technically be an upset. Jace?
I'm going to go with NC State on this one. I think this game will tell us a lot about Tech and what they stand and what they can be. And although I don't have a lot of faith in NC State, considering their first game of the year, they had to kick a game-winning field goal or blocked a game-winning field goal against ECU to win, I just don't think that Texas Tech has enough firepower.
I'm picking Texas Tech. Big 12 school, going for the upset, I just think they can do it. I think they're a higher caliber team than NC State in general. I think I'm going with the Red Raiders.
I like that higher caliber reading on the situation, Alex. Good choice.
Thank you. Okay, the final matchup, OU Nebraska, and now Nebraska's
I want to go last on this one.
Okay, Jace.
Okay, I'm going at least 1-3 this week or 1-2 this week because OU is winning that game. I think that losing a coach can have a positive effect on a team or a negative effect on a team. And in the terms of Nebraska, I haven't seen too much positive out there in the past 3 years.
But what about, OU technically lost their coach. They're starting new. They've only had him for 2 weeks.
Brent Venables is uncomparable to Nebraska football. And although I want Nebraska to be good, I really do, because that would bring back some very good times, they aren't. And they won't be for a while.
Okay, I'm going to go Nebraska. I have nothing to lose by picking Nebraska.
You are the leader right now.
I will not pick OU to win.
Didn't you just not pick Kansas to get a point, though? Right? Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I said I would really like Kansas to win, and if they win, I'd be fine not getting the point.
Okay.
But I think
my misunderstanding
Houston would win it. It's in Lincoln. The Huskers have a lot riding on them. The nation's looking into them and to the team and to that new coach. I don't know. Just go Cornhuskers.
So normally I go with college football, I go with the underdog. I cheer for the underdog, especially with Big 12 teams. I like to support them when people underestimate them. And you look at Nebraska in this whole situation. If they could pull off the upset against Oklahoma, this could be the bounce back year, and Nebraska football can finally go back to the days, the glory days. But I need to get a win this week.
You need to get a win. Hold on here.
I need to get a win, okay?
I go 0-3. I'll
He's
mark my
picking
words.
Kansas, though.
Mark my words. If I go 0-3 this week, I'm picking every underdog for the rest of the podcast.
Okay, your words are Mike. So, as much as I want Nebraska to win, I really do. I would love to see Oklahoma get upset. They look like every year's Oklahoma team, so I'm going with Oklahoma.
Okay, so we're kind of doing the reverse. You really want Nebraska to win, but you're picking Oklahoma.
Yep.
I really want Kansas to win, but I'm going with Houston. All right, we're nearing the end of our podcast. It's time for predictions for tonight's game against Arkansas Pine Bluff. Looking at our predictions these last 2 weeks. First week, both of you guys basically tied. You were each off by 57 points. I was off by 65, so
wow.
I lost week 1. But in week 2, Asa was off by 21 points. I was off by 19, and Jace was off by 16. So as a group, we improved significantly on our predictions. Jace did win last week's predictions. So with that, Jace, I'll let you start off with your prediction, knowing that OSU has a 99.7% chance to win, currently favored by 57.5 points, and the over-under is 61.5.
I'm going Arkansas Pine. I'm just kidding.
We might need a new co-host.
So there's 3 key things that I want to see in this game that I'll just quickly go over. 1, no turnovers against an FCS opponent. I'd like to see none of those. 2, more running from Dominic and maybe some other backs, and that's why I think he may not be the leading rusher, because I think Ollie will get some carries along with Spencer. And then 3, I want the starting defense, when they're out there, to allow less than 8 points. So 1 touchdown's fine, but less than 8 points. With that being said, my score prediction is 61-13, Oklahoma State over APB.
You and I actually have similar prediction on that, Jace.
Okay,
Hey,
Asa?
man.
I was going to go 62-9.
Oh, wow.
Where's the extra point from?
I think they'll either have 3 field goals or a blocked extra point.
Okay.
And then Oklahoma State will kick 2 field goals, so they'll score 56.
Yeah.
Okay. I have the highest score, barely. I have 63 points. And I'm only
61, 62,
we did not
63.
plan this, folks, I promise.
I'm giving Arkansas Pine Bluff only 3 points. So my score is 63-3. So we will
Some
see.
weird scores we predicted.
I'm telling you, if Arkansas Pine Bluff gets like a last-second touchdown, me and Asa are going to be like, yeah, we're closer.
All right. Do you guys have anything left to say before tonight's game?
This is a good week of Big 12 football, so before you go and start your tailgate over near Boone Pickens Stadium, hop on to ESPN and watch some of these games we got going on. It is a good week, and the Big 12, if we can get a lot of these upset wins, we're going to look almost as good as the SEC.
Or the OSU preview, but we love Big 12 football, and I'm rooting for all the Big 12 teams this week. So ultimately, even BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, I want them all to win. I want the conference to look good, and it's a great day for them to all win their games.
All right. So go turn your TVs to ESPN Plus. Kickoff is at 6 o'clock tonight. Thank you for tuning in, and go Pokes!